The festival of Sukkot is known in the Bible as Zman Simchatainu, the time of our rejoicing. Today, we have a special reason to rejoice, and that is the release of the prisoner hostage by Hamas, Gilad Shalit. Zahayom Asa Hashem, Nagila v'nismecha vo. We say in the Hallel prayers during this week, this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad thereon. And we have extra reason to be glad today. But it is a bittersweet gladness, sort of like what is referred to in the Bible as Gilu bir'ada. Be joyous with trembling. Because at the same time that Gilad Shalit was reunited with his family, over 1,000 former Hamas and Palestinian terrorists and prisoners were released, including a number of premeditated murderers. These people are now going to be released into society or back into society, whether on the West Bank or in Gaza or exiled to Jordan or to some other countries, but there is no certainty that they will not resume their terrorist activities, which led to a great debate in Israel of whether it was really worth making this exchange. After all, it's probably quite certain that some of these prisoners will revert to terrorism, which will result in other captured Israeli soldiers and even a number of murders, God forbid. This is not the first time that the Jewish state is dealing with this, and there have been a number of prisoner exchanges before, lopsided prisoner exchanges, pointing out and underscoring how precious the life of every single citizen of Israel is, whether Jewish or not Jewish. And therefore, there was almost no choice for the Israeli government but to release the prisoners for Gilad Shalit. There were tens of thousands of demonstrators over the summer. They were marching for him. The Shalit parents set up a tent in front of the Prime Minister's home in Jerusalem, where he had to pass through them every single day. And I guess this consensus of the citizenry of Israel was to release him. I think over 70% said to pay this price for his release. Back in the early 13th century, there was a case of Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, that's the Maharam of Rothenburg, one of the great Tosafists, who was also held hostage by the monarch of Germany in that time. I think it was in 1286. And he was held for a great ransom. His students amassed a great ransom and were willing to pay it, but the Maharam refused to let them pay it, assuming that the German authorities would just take more hostages if he were released. And after 7 years, he died in prison, and his body wasn't released for another 14 years after his death, when a very wealthy patron paid for the release of his body. And that patron is buried actually in the cemetery in Worms next to the Maharam. So we see no matter how hard they try to toe the line and say, don't negotiate with terrorists or with hostage takers, it's virtually impossible. And it's a very, very difficult decision. Let's rejoice with the Shalit family, but let us be wary of what the future will bring. A happy Sukkot, Shmini Atzeret, and Simchat Torah to all.